If you go back to the origins of several game series, you'll find that many of them started on consoles. That's all fine and dandy, but what about when they have an entry on a handheld? The idea of a new handheld game has disappeared with the release of the Nintendo Switch, but what about before that? That's where I come in. I want to go through different series and see how they translated their console gameplay into a portable version. Since this is my first video doing this, I figured I'd keep things simple by starting with Super Mario. The first handheld game was Super Mario Land. As for the game that it will be compared to, I had to make a choice between two games. It was either Super Mario Bros. 1 or Super Mario Bros. 3. In the end, I decided on the first entry, as while SMB 3 was the last entry to be released prior to Land, SMB 1 shares more similarities, which I'll get to right now. SMB 1 is easy to understand. You jump through 8 worlds, collecting power-ups, and attempting to save Princess Peach. Land feels like a bite-sized version of this formula. Instead of 8 worlds, you only got 4, and instead of 4 levels per world, you only got 3. This sounds bad on paper until you look at the levels of SMB 1. In SMB 1, level layouts were reused, and it was pretty obvious when it was done. For example, World 2-3 has you running across a bridge, avoiding Cheep Cheeps flying from below the screen. Now let's jump to World 7-3. You run across a bridge, avoiding Cheep Cheeps flying from below the screen. Oh, and there's some Koopas, I guess. Adding new enemies isn't a new level, it's just fluff, so I can appreciate Land not taking that route. That makes Land more suitable for shorter playthroughs, which can be convenient when taking this game on the go. Length is neither of these games' strong suit, but Land accepts its fate to being a short game. SMB 1 certainly doesn't. Since many NES games back then cost, on average, $40, it probably wouldn't look good if you could just beat the game in less than an hour. That's where artificially making the game more difficult comes in. This usually comes in the form of limited lives where if you lose them all, it's back to the start of the game, terrible enemy placement or design created to munch at said lives, or making parts of the game cryptic as all heck. Some of these were leftovers from when games were mostly played in the arcades, which were designed to eat up quarters. There was also the addition of a points system in home console games, but I don't think anyone cared about that since you were only competing against yourself, and the score got wiped once the system was shut off, so what was even the point? Anyways, back to SMB 1. As an overall package, SMB 1 is mostly well-rounded when it comes to difficulty, not having too many difficulty spikes. You don't even need to replay the entire game if you die midway through, as there are warp pipes to take you to each world if you find them, although that's expecting you to know they exist. I also played this game numerous times, so my perception of its difficulty may be warped. There are just two things that come to mind that bring it down: the Hammer Bros and mazes. Starting with Hammer Bros. All my homies hate Hammer Bros. These guys are just straight menaces to society. Our lives would actually be better without them. Just saying. Okay, fine. I'll chill with the Hammer Bros slander. For now. These fiends do what they are known for, throwing hammers. But here, it is unbearable. The speed at which they throw these hammers is ridiculous. The footage speaks for itself. Unless you're going to hit them from the bottom or using a flower, taking down a Hammer Bro is borderline impossible without getting hit. When I was Mini Mario, a strategy I had was to stay close to them and then sneak past once they jump. You must be careful when doing this, as when they move back and forth, and if you don't react fast enough, then you're dead. They are especially bad in World 8-3, easily the worst level in the entire game. There are some bullet bill cannons and Koopas, but they are nothing. First, there are two sets of Hammer Brothers who you must face. If you are lucky, you can sneak past them. But then the game throws you the biggest slap in the nuts. They throw 4 of these bastards at you, on flat ground. Seriously, who thought of this torture? I can just use the strategy I mentioned earlier, but when I played this game for the first few times, it was painful. During my most recent playthrough, I tried to use this Koopa shell to take them down, and it went through 2 of them! Like, what the heck? On top of that, I had to jump to avoid the returning shell, and the Hammer Bro one-tapped me. What a stab in the chest. My other criticism is aimed towards the mazes. To this day, I have no idea how you're supposed to figure these out on your own. The worst one is in World 8-4. There are multiple pipes, and you need to go down a specific route. Otherwise, you have to start from the beginning. Like I mentioned before, how are you supposed to know what route to take? There's also this pipe that looks like you can't reach it. But what's this? A hidden block? Oh boy, my favorite! At least once you get past this water segment, it's time to face Bow. Why? Why must life be so cruel to those who have already suffered so much? Land goes in the complete opposite direction. It's a walk in the park. Two enemies are similar to enemies found in SMB1. One is Bombshell Koopa. When you stomp on him, he turns into a bomb, but their radius is small, so it's not a game changer. The other is Goomba. Oh, I'm sorry. I meant the Chibibo. Oh, wait. I'm sorry again. That's the original Japanese name. His name is Goombo. They walk towards you. Yeah, totally different from Goombas. At least they're related. All the other new enemies are about as threatening as the ones in SMB1. Let's look at one of them. It's a bee who throws spears, and his name is Bun Bun. I'm sure he has a great personality. A change that makes the game more cumbersome is that Land has the Super Ball flower instead of the Fire flower. I don't need to explain the Fire flower, but for the Super Ball flower, it lets Mario throw balls at the ground, making them bounce towards the air. In my opinion, it's inferior to the Fire flower because instead of you simply having to press the B button and letting the projectile go forward, you will likely have to jump and then aim to make sure you hit the enemy. It's just easier to jump on them when possible. Each game having only a mushroom, flower, and star as power-ups is one of the reasons why I selected SMB1 for this video over SMB3. The biggest addition that affects the difficulty is the bonus game. At the end of every stage there are two exits, a top one and a bottom one. Go through the bottom exit and you just move on to the next level, but enter the top exit and you can earn a Super Ball flower or more lives. This makes lives more disposable, therefore decreasing the difficulty. While this does make the game more accessible to less experienced players, it makes this game less appealing to return to for platforming veterans. Both games offer hard modes after beating the main game, and I would say SMB1's hard mode is better. Many Goombas are replaced with Buzzy Beetles, and the enemies move faster. Some stage hazards or enemy types are introduced earlier compared to the normal difficulty. Buzzy Beetles are also immune to fireballs, though it somewhat raises the stakes when in a cramped area. I wouldn't call it hard, it's more of an in-between between normal and hard. I see it more as a remix of the levels, so it's fine. Land's hard mode is meh. It just adds more enemies, so there's nothing to write home about. A minor difference between the two is that completion of SMB1 unlocks hard mode and a world select, while in Land, you have to beat hard mode before you unlock level select. After beating the game 2 times, why would I use a level select which I will lose after turning off the system? What more would I do? It's a change where I'm just left a bit befuddled. Another thing that leaves me befuddled is the controls. They are not that great. Not horrendous, but it's enough for me to be like, that's rough. In Land, when you fall off a platform, Mario drops like a brick. Control after jumping feels weird, and once you start running, Mario just goes. There is no build up. I know not all people are fans of how SMB1 controls, but you can't tell me it is worse than Land. As for me, I like it. Speed is gradual and doesn't catch you off guard. As for jumping, I can usually guess where Mario will land, instead of hoping the controls don't get screwy with me. I may even prefer how it plays compared to modern 2D entries, but that's just personal preference. In terms of graphic and sound, Land looks like a more simplified version of SMB1's graphics. It's not too bad as this was a launch title for the Game Boy, but comparing it to its sequel, you can tell the game isn't looking as good as it could have been. As for the sound, it is pretty obvious which music people will prefer. SMB1's first song is so iconic that as of writing the script, it has recently been added to the US Library of Congress's National Recording Registry, making it the first video game song to do so. The other tracks are iconic as well, like the Starman theme. Even without taking their impact on the series into account, many of the tracks just sound great. In terms of recognition for Land, I feel that the first song wins spotlight. You could probably find multiple remixes on YouTube, but you can't really say the same for the other tracks. That's not to say they're bad, I actually like most of them. My second favorite track, bet you can guess my favorite, is the Staff Roll theme. One track I would like to mention is the Invincibility theme that, I kid you not, is Gallop Infernal. Don't know why, but it just is. There are a few more things that Land did that made it different. It gave us Daisy, who is the princess of this game's location, Cereza Land. She's basically a Peach clone in this game, but we all know where her future lies. Since this is a new location, there are different themes. There are places such as a desert, ancient ruins, tropical beaches, and... Glad they tried out different themes instead of just sticking to the basics. There are also 2 auto-scrolling shooter levels, where Mario is either in a submarine or in a plane. They're fun, but nothing too exciting. The bosses are unique to each world, as Bowser is the villain in this game. Instead, it's some alien named Tatanga. Is it just me, or does the sprite make him look like a bird? Imagine if in Land, it was just you looking to fight a bird. To start wrapping things up, is Super Mario Land successful at converting Super Mario Bros. Gameplay to a portable form? Well, the controls are wonky, the difficulty is cake, not even a piece, and the flower power-up is worse. At the same time, it doesn't do anything that ages it to an extreme. It's less than half an hour long, so it's not a huge time investment. This was an okay first attempt at making a portable Super Mario game. Just nothing special. With all that said, I hope you found this video interesting. Feel free to share your opinion on Land. And this is Adam, signing off. Peace.